morning, everyone. I am so excited to help introduce our amazing instructor today, Rochelle. You are with Workplace Education Manitoba, and in case you didn't know, this is part 2 of Google Suite. How sweet is that, right? Rochelle Amy teaches a philosophy that a little warmth can change the world. And if any of you, well, I guess you were here last time, you know that that's a truth. Rochelle's amazing at helping people to feel comfortable and to be inclusive as well. And I love that. Now, not only are we so lucky to have Rochelle at WEM, she is, as well as you are, a continuous learner. And so we see her chipping away at her graduate degree in leadership, and we're so thankful for that because, hey, we all need a little extra education, don't we? And we know as instructors that we are not immune to that for sure. Rochelle has been engaged in educational settings for over 20 years and now as an essential skills instructor with WEM. And we know that she is not a stranger to learning. She's also not a stranger to the Googles. And so we're so thankful that she's able to share that knowledge with us today. Now, before I turn this over to Rochelle, I'm going to just remind you of where you are, the people you are with, and why we do what we do. So Workplace Education Manitoba, we're helping people to develop essential skills that are needed for work, learning, and life. And the Googles here, we know that this is something that you can apply to all of those different areas of life. Now, the 9 essential skills. Most of you have been a part of our sessions and you will know the 9 essential skills. So oral communication, thinking, reading, continuous learning, document use, computer use, right? Oh, excuse me. Working with others, numeracy, writing, all of these great essential skills. Now, perhaps it's because we live in the land of essential skills, but I kid you not. I'm noticing more and more how these essential skills fit into every single thing that we do, whether inside or outside of work. And if you know that there are some of those skills that maybe you're a little weak on, or there's someone on your team that could use a little bit of extra help, we are here to assist you with that. And during these unprecedented times in the COVID-19, we have our Interlake West Center open with all the protocols in place so that you can feel safe and secure while learning and upgrading. We're located just across from the library, downtown Selkirk, with our good friends at Red River College. So when you're driving down Manitoba Avenue, you'll see their giant red sign, and you'll know that that's the spot to turn in. We also have a sign there. It's just theirs is red, so it's a little bit glossy, but we're there as well. And you can always visit our website, weminterlake.ca. Now, we love what we do. And I hope that you can feel that and sense that and know that we do this with the help of our good friends at Employment and Social Development Canada and Manitoba Education and Training. And this project was jointly funded through Human Resources, Skills Development Canada, and Entrepreneurship Training and Trade, which means, this giant slide means that you are getting this incredible training at zero cost, funded training. So lucky. Now, if you're more interested or have curious thoughts on that side of the biz, please feel free to reach out to what I lovingly refer to as the mothership website, wem.mb.ca. All right. Now, just to orient you, as a reminder, if you look just up, you'll notice a question button, the emojis. Thank you for finding that. And of course, our chat. We love to communicate with you through the chat. And in a course like this, big, juicy 3-parter, you're probably going to have some questions. So feel free to pop those into the chat or into this one just above here. If you have any questions, I'm going to be behind the scenes taking a peek at all of those questions and going through. If you do have any tech issues or things like that, please feel free to, you can private message me through the chat. I'm listed here today, even though I'm Carrie, and some of you know that, I'm listed as Workplace Education Manitoba. So if you have any questions, concerns, recipes, costume ideas for Halloween, please feel free to pop those into the chat and private message me. Let's keep them private, okay? Now, speaking of keeping things private, we want you to know that this is a space where you can share, and feel free to share your thoughts and your ideas, and know, and as a reminder, that what happens in Google Suite stays in Google Suite. And so we remind you, please don't record any part of this or gossip about people's lack of Googling issues or whatever it is, but know that it stays in here. And we're so grateful for that. All right, Google Suite. Did I pop in the wrong one, Rochelle? Oh, it's a review. Oh my gosh, you're so good. This is why you're so amazing. All right, everybody, let's give it up for Rochelle. Thank you for your engagement so far, and hopefully I won't have to bug you too much about giving her the hands and the eyes, and the laughings, and all of those things. All right, Rochelle, have fun. I'll be over here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrie. We love those emojis. It helps bring the energy and collaboration to the room. So thank you for participating with Carrie. And thanks for being here. It was funny when she was just talking about the privacy and lack of recordings and all of that. I thought, man, I'm surprised Google doesn't have an app for that. Remember last time we looked at how many apps they had, and we saw there were over 240 of them at the time of recording. And not one of them was called Google Gossip. So maybe they're developing that one next. I'm not sure. But we are going to dig into some chat features that they have today. So just want to recap from last week. Show me a thumbs up emoji if you feel like you were able to tackle that homework, those assignments. Let's get a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending how engaged you got to be in that. Awesome. I know I got emails from a number of you recapping. That was really awesome to see. And so cool. Like, I think I asked you to just try a few things, but so many people reached further and tried like 5 or 6 things. And so I'm really, really pleased to see that, because you've probably adopted Google as a verb, right? How about an emoji or a wave if you use it as a verb? Oh, I'll Google that, or let's Google that to find out. So if you've adopted it as a verb, you need to have some of those skills to go along with that, right? So let's just look at that for a minute. I did warn you that I would ask you for that feedback. What were some of those search tools and functions that you were able to use? Maybe tell us 1, 2 maybe that were your top ones, your fun ones. I won't tell you my favorite because I don't want to rob you of that opportunity. And there's no right answer, because we all use the internet for different reasons in our jobs. Some are doing high-level research, some are looking at access of ease and information to help clients, and so it's different every time. The Boolean operators, gold star for Lucy. Ask Jeeves. I'm old enough to remember Ask Jeeves. I'm sorry to confess. I even remember his uniform he wore. How about a thumbs up emoji if you know what we're talking about with Jeeves and his uniform? Hey, thanks for the camaraderie. Thanks for being seasoned like me. And the shortcuts. Yes, Terry, absolutely. And the minus operator. I think one of you even wrote about the minus operator, and I remembered how I fell in love with that, and then I stopped using it, just got lazy and stopped using it. And so when I saw your email, it totally inspired me again. I'm like, yes, I'm going to re-engage that tool. So I'm really pleased, because what you find in this is these tools are meant to help you. And we often think that the help in technology means doing something faster. But as it relates to data, research, information online, it's not really about speed. The algorithms are what give you speed, but we don't want the information just based on what an algorithm does for us. We want the information that actually benefits our workplace. So being able to use the Boolean operators and different tools brings you into a place of more meaningful research. And I know one of our people in our group, I won't reveal who you are, but I think one of our participants here today even works in a library setting. So they're working with looking for high content, vetted information all the time. And so these tools really help push you up to the next level to do that beginner vetting. So someone here mentioned the Boolean operators, and I'm glad you did. It's something you can just grab online. You can Google it and you'll see what those are. And there's actually a bunch of YouTube videos for them too. So I find sometimes they don't work if you're doing wildly popular things like, let's say, Tim Hortons or some phrase like that. There is a little bit of domination with algorithms and ads. But remember, you could take these into other browsers. So maybe you want to use the browser Firefox, for example, which is not owned by Google, and then use some of these tools there. Or if you're accustomed to always using Microsoft Edge, you can take these into that platform also and quantify your research. So it's not just a Google tool. We're just submitting that because Google operates on that blank screen theory, we want you to be able to get the kind of data you want. So there is a YouTube video mentioned here, and it's just something you can look up and add those tools to your toolkit. And I think if you had these 6 operations and modifiers in your toolkit, it would probably really help you in your workplace. So today we promised that we would actually look at the products and see how do they work, how do they compare, is it better than, same than, compatible to Microsoft products? And the answer is it's not better than, but it's definitely compatible to and useful. So we're going to do that by looking at Google Docs, which of course is the word processing, Google Sheets, the spreadsheets. We're going to look at Google Slides and our favorite thing, the collaboration and the share. And if we have time, I'm even going to show you confidentiality. So how many feel like this? Learning's so great, but sometimes being taught, not so great. I feel this way about technology because I think this picture is so reflective of the truth. We're moving at that cheetah speed. Is that a cheetah or a leopard? I don't know my jungle animals clearly, but this sort of feels like the speed we're moving at, that even those Boolean operators, those could change next year. I don't know. But we're in that place where actually digital technology, one of those 9 essential skills, we find it pairs well with continuous learning, another essential skill, because there's constantly the turning and the changing. And I think even of Instagram, I don't love it. I have a little Instagram account just to sort of see certain things. And so I just used Instagram the way I like to. And then last summer I was sitting with 2 millennials and they're like, oh, let me see your Instagram. And so they started showing me all these shortcuts that weren't on Instagram like 2 years ago when I downloaded the app. And so all of a sudden these things merge and you have all these options, and they're supposed to make life easier, but it means we have to continuously learn. So let's do that by looking at Google Docs. So we've got the little picture of the Scrabble tiles because this reminds us that when we see this blue icon that looks like a piece of paper with sentences on it, we know that that's an icon reflecting word processing. So if we want to make letters, posters, contracts, things that have to do with words, we're going to be able to use that blue icon. So that's why that's on your page there, because sometimes on some computers, that's actually saved right on your taskbar or right on your desktop as a shortcut item to be able to access Google Docs. And I want you to know what it looks like because it's a little bit different from the Microsoft Word icon, which is also blue and white, but a little different looking. Gee, I wonder if it's a coincidence that they're the same color. So wondering, on that note of that type of document, we're talking word processing, not numbers here. We're talking about word data. Can you think of a file that you share at work that's reflective of that? So something where more than one person is inputting data into that or updating it. Anybody want to pop in the chat examples of those types of documents? I know Carrie uses those kind of documents, and I wonder what else we're using in our workplaces. Yeah, Excel files are good for that. Terry, good point. A staff schedule is a perfect example, right? Sometimes the on-duty manager is updating, and that's not the same person every time. And Darlene mentioning, yeah, emailing documents back and forth. And that's helpful because you know which copy you're working on, but less helpful sometimes if it's so big that it won't go through email. So that's where Google Docs gives us an opportunity to not worry about our size, and then Docs in the cloud server, absolutely. So do you want to use it as an app, or do you want to access it through Google Drive? Well, you really can do either. It will do the same thing, but remember how passionate I was, let's say, last week about going through Google Drive? That's sort of where I would push you today in a way. So you could click on that icon and go directly into it right from its own app on your phone or tablet or laptop. But I prefer, and I do recommend, you always access it through going through Google Drive first. So remember, any of the apps that they have, we can put the name of the app .google.com and it would get us there. So in this case, we could put drive.google.com, and the icon for that is that green, yellow, and blue triangle, and you may have that icon saved. You can save it right to your taskbar, and it's a quick way to always pop in there. But if I knew I wanted to do a Google Doc or a word processing piece, I could go into my Drive, and right from there I can do Google Docs and create a new piece. Now notice how my multiple tabs open, right? So you can see on the far left I had my email open. The tab that's the white color, it's showing you that my Drive is the one I'm in right now. And as soon as I clicked on Google Docs, it opened in a new tab. Google Sheets did the same, and of course Maps or any host of products. They don't all have to be Google. In the next tab over, I could open, say, Hotmail or Outlook or something like that. This is just to show you that when we're working with documents, each individual document will always open in a new tab. And just digging back to the why on that we talked about last week, the why is because we are using a cloud-based system. So these are always going to open in an internet tab because they're not saved on our actual device. They're saved online in our online account. So once we're inside Google Docs, this is what we see. We're always greeted with these templates, and feel free to use templates, but I don't personally believe they're a great starting point, because often in templates you're inheriting tabs and margins and placeholders that you don't know what to do with. So it doesn't hurt to just start with a fresh canvas and just start right there. So that blank one, as soon as you click on that, it's going to open up a page for you. Looks pretty similar to Microsoft Word, right? Can I get a witness? Looks a lot like Microsoft Word. It's the idea of tabs and having a ribbon across the top, and even the ribbon icons look the same, like your bold, italics, and underline. Those look very familiar to Microsoft. So if you've used one, you could definitely use the other. And those of you who talk about emailing a document back and forth, this is one opportunity for you to share something in a way that doesn't get lost or bogged down in email, and you always have the live version. So you could, in fact, have this be staff schedule October 2020, and then you could share it with 5 people, and every time any one of those 5 people types something in there, all of you can see that revision. So you're always working with a fresh document, and it's just saved online so you can access it from anywhere, and you don't have to wait for updates from your colleagues. Now you can see I did name it, right? Google Docs formatting slide, and then I have to place it. So yeah, sorcery, absolutely. Isn't that magical? So then I've got to put it somewhere. Now, Google's really kind to us that even if you don't put it anywhere, it's always going to keep that file for you until you get rid of it. But for like peace of mind factor, put it somewhere. Organize your files, okay? And you would do that by clicking on that move button. Of course, once you're in it, it's just a regular old word processing program where you could type things, change fonts, use bullet points, and so on. One of the differences, and actually one of the weaknesses of Google Docs, is that it inserts images and tables in a different way than Microsoft. So just be aware that if you want to play around with a table, you need to incorporate that with Google Drawings, and then you can manipulate it into your Google Doc. At the end of the day, it makes using it as a placeholder easier than Microsoft Word, but at the start of it, it's a little more of a challenge to go and find it. But it's super cool because you can explore and import things like that with Google Docs. You can really enhance your documents, but be aware of copyright issues. Always like to mention that, and we'll touch on that a little bit in our next session. We're going to use the Explore button and work on how to enhance the look and feel of our documents. But today we want to camp out in Google Sheets for a few minutes. How many out there absolutely, with a thumbs up, you're going to show me if you absolutely love spreadsheets and you live and eat and breathe them. And then with a thumbs down, you're going to show me if you're kind of like, spreadsheet, it's a spreadsheet. So thumbs up is, I love this, this is how my brain works. Thumbs down is like, take it or leave it, or I hate it, or any one of the above. Mixed reactions with spreadsheets, right? Total mixed reactions. And I feel like I have that mixed reaction on any given day. Sometimes in the morning I love it, and by afternoon I don't. And I guess I really don't believe that one of these huge tech companies is better than the other. I really don't. But in terms of ease of use, if you're new to spreadsheets, or your coworkers are and you want to share a spreadsheet with them, Google Sheets collaboration is actually 1,000 times easier than Microsoft's version. So because we talked about last session how they created their software with the whole concept of collaborating, that was built in right at the ground level, whereas Microsoft added collaboration later. Google Sheets is probably the easiest software you can use to learn how to do a spreadsheet for the first time. So same concept, should we just click on the green icon that looks like a sheet and go in that way, or should we go in through Google Drive? Obviously, I'm pretty biased on which method to go in by. And by rehearsing this a few times, you're actually also training yourself that you're looking for the information in the right places. So once you have a whole host of files, by going in through your drive, you not only can organize them all, but you also see all of the opportunities available in that drop-down menu that you see there. So of course, we want to focus on Google Sheets. We would just click on that and the arrow would allow us to open up a brand new spreadsheet. So with that in mind, for those of you who are like, you know what, I like spreadsheets, I don't know them that well, and so on, for you folks, I want to just jump in. And for those of you who love Excel, but you don't really know Sheets, let's do a screen share here so that you get the opportunity to see a little bit of why Google Sheets actually matters to people, why they love it so much. So let me pop in here. There we go. So the cool thing is I might save a Google shortcut right on my desktop that's attached to a certain identity. So in this case, I have my account from Workplace Education Manitoba. That's how I'm logged in. And you can see above, there's another W that tells me the same thing. Here's the email address you're using to access this profile. The reason why there's two icons there has to do with managing your identity. You could be logged in with a primary account, which probably should be your personal account. And then you could add in an additional Google account. So I could go into any one of my Google identities right here and be working with multiple Google profiles. The reason I suggest you do it with your personal one first is because if you're saving to your drive and so on, you want to be able to access things in the future. And if you set up your entire Google profile with your work account, that might cause a transfer of information issue for you later on down the road. Now I have a few options to find my drive and to find Google Sheets. So of course down here, I have Google Drive. Why is it showing up down there? Well, these are ones that I've somehow recently visited, or Google has decided they're popular and they want me to visit them. So that's one way, but yours probably won't show up there if you haven't been in it before. So we go to our yummy waffle, our waffle covered with berries and whipped cream up here, and we can find all of the apps available to us. So we scroll down and we think, which one of the Google apps do I want? Remember, we're in a Chrome browser. We're looking at Google. So it's obviously giving us all the Google options here. That's why we're seeing all of their apps. And you can see this more. It goes on and on and on. In our case, we want to look at sheets. So let's go ahead and click on that. And gee, doesn't this look familiar? If I click on blank, I will get a blank spreadsheet. So what did I do here that contradicted my best rule? I went just to the waffle and opened Google Sheets. And then I didn't have a sense of where I was and where all my files are stored. So let's remember that although that's one way to go in, the preferred way is through the drive. And if we need to, we can access it from up here, click on our drive, and then boom, now I can see my profile and all of my documents that I've saved. So here's a cool file to take a look at. Now, I have a hockey file here. So this gives us an example of how we could take some simple data that's happening all the time that maybe other people need to contribute to or see, and we could put it into a spreadsheet so that it makes life a little bit easier. So in this case, no animals were hurt in the production of this. This isn't actual real information here, but it's an example of sort of what I did last season to cope with 3 kids in hockey and, 2 sets of grandparents and a couple of aunts who all wanted to know where the games were. And I found I was just getting text messages every day. Where are we supposed to be? Who's doing what? And so I couldn't take it anymore. So I did this. And then I shared this with those 6 people. So every time I did a live update, whenever they looked at the document, they saw the most recent thing. I never needed to email them. I could change it every day and they would get the live version. So just to play around, just feel free to use your little walls in between the cells to drag things around so that you can make it as big or little as you want. Feel free to use a selection of a whole column. So maybe I want everything in column A to always show up in a bold font, and maybe I always want it to be a little bit bigger, let's say. I can do that by selecting a whole column. I also could just select a few words. Maybe I only want, for whatever random reason, maybe these first 3 dates. Maybe I only want to select those with my mouse and my left click, and maybe those ones I always want them to be italic. So I can select certain data, or I can select on a column or on a row to make something change in the whole entire row or the whole entire column. So that's the kind of thing where I think when you look at a blank spreadsheet like this, it can feel overwhelming because there's just so much to go on. So just, always start with your title, give yourself a space so that you can always modify and change it. And then, let's say we want to do this. We can start making columns and rows, and maybe we're going to make so many this way that we want to be careful about our data size. Well, we can shrink everything and make it tiny, and as you can see, we didn't lose our data. It just sort of squished it all together for us and gives us a little bit of a teaser on that. If we wanted to see it, let's just take a note of the phrase text wrapping, because overflow means it's going to overflow right through that cell even if you make the cell tiny. But if you wrap it, it means it's going to be packaged in that size of a cell no matter how big it is. So often we're looking for our data to show up. We just need to pick that wrapping option. Now, if we don't like that it made it like that, we have choices, right? We could make our font teeny tiny, or we can drag our walls to make it bigger, or we could even drag our row and make that bigger so that maybe this needs to be the biggest thing and it's all going to fit in there. We can keep dragging our size. So going back to the concept here of trying to tally data, I'll just show you maybe 2 tricks on things that you can do. The whole point of spreadsheets is to cope with numbers, right? So in this case, I wanted data of dates and times in chronological order, so that's helpful in a spreadsheet. That's sort of a nightmare in a word processing document because you're limited to tables for that. But in this case, I've got child name, day, date, time, etc. Well, let's say the child gets all gung-ho about their goals and their assists, and we want to actually tally that. Well, here I'm referring to an entire row, so I've put in that in this particular game, Taylor got 5 goals and 2 assists. Wow, what a game. That's probably best game of the season, maybe. But now, out of all their goals, maybe I want to tally all of them. So let's see, how do I get total game points to show an answer right here? Well, don't we love our sum function up here? Now, these functions are so fun to dig in on, and I think that really, if you were to learn the sum function and maybe an if function in Word or in Excel, those are probably going to be your most fun ones to learn. But let's choose sum. It's the most useful. It's the starting point of almost every spreadsheet. And when I click on that word, look what it put into my cell. It said, hey, I know you want a sum, and isn't this great? You don't even have to type in the formula. It figures it out for you. Now it says, just tell me what array or what group of cells do you want me to add up for you? Well, I can just use my left click and choose this whole area and let go and hit enter, and boom, there's my number. So it's giving me that number of 43, which is pretty awesome. Now I could do the same thing here. I could go up to sum, click on sum, and get it to do the same thing and select all of these. But let's say I'm doing a huge spreadsheet. I don't have time for that. I have 100 rows. I don't want to work that way. Why don't I just borrow this guy? I'll click on my little black or little blue box in the corner and drag over, and it copied the formula. So train your eye on where to look for formulas. We are not looking inside this blue square to read the number 9. We're looking way up here on our formula bar, and you can see FX, exact same as Excel. This tells us here's the formula that is working in that cell, and that helps us just verify that there aren't errors in where we're pulling info from. Now, a logical way to add up those numbers would be to take my 43 and my 9 and maybe put it beside it or underneath it. But here, 43 only represents goals and 49 represents assists. What if I need to know what that whole total is? Well, I could put that total anywhere. I could say total overall, let's say, and I want my answer to be over here. I'll maybe draw an arrow or an equals, so you can see I'm sort of pointing over to that next column. So my total overall, well, that again is using our sum function, and it's saying, hey, where do you want me to pull the info from? Well, I want these 2 cells only, so I'll select them and hit enter, and boom, it gives me my total of all of those points. Now, visually, logically, we often think this way, that if we're going to tally something for a total, it should probably be near the subtotals. Yeah, that works, certainly in a ledger. But if you're doing a report of maybe how many books were taken out and how many were returned abused or something like that, maybe you don't want to scroll all the way down to the bottom of your spreadsheet. Maybe you want that right as the first thing. So I can actually have a total game points note up here where I've just put in that I want my game points to show up here. And I'm referencing my cell right beside. Notice I just keep words in one cell and numbers in a separate cell. Well, I can do the same thing here. I can say, hey, I want a summary of these two cells. And even though my cell named B3 is nowhere near the corresponding information, it's still able to read it and pull that for me. So I just want to have fun, make that stand out, because now when I go to print off my big report for someone, my most important summary of information is right there at the top, and it doesn't matter where else it's pulling the data from in the spreadsheet. Do you just love that, or do you just love that? Now, the other fun thing is anything you do in a spreadsheet is open to multiple pages. So you're in a workbook. Every time you're in a new spreadsheet, you're in a book, basically, that has lots and lots of pages. So down here below, you can see that I have a page just about Taylor's games, and I have a page just about Sophie's games. Well, maybe on Taylor's page, I notice, oh, how did I get Johnny in there? Oops. I can just click on the entire row and hold my control key and select multiple rows. And then if I want to delete those ones, I can get rid of all of the references to Johnny. So that's pretty fun. And then with Taylor and Sophie, notice how they have a color, but schedule does not have a color. Well, maybe my master schedule needs to have a color. So let's right click on it. So we get our secret menu by right clicking. And let's change that color to say yellow, because I want that to stand out. And then I decide, oh, Taylor shouldn't be blue because his team actually wears purple jerseys. I can just change him by the right click. Now, if I find that I'm always in Taylor's schedule and not in the master schedule, I can use my left click and just drag him over, and I can reorder these tabs just with a left click anytime. Another fun function is that if you want to compare things, or maybe someone's created this for you and you do not want to mess up their data, then go ahead and do a right click on that first tab, and you can do a duplicate. And what will end up happening is, see how I have schedule, and then to its right, I have copy of schedule. So now I know I can work in the copy of schedule and I'm not going to screw up the original, or I could modify it to be the thing I want it to be. So maybe I want to rename it, and I'll call it Carrie is Awesome, because she's in the background dealing with tech problems right now. So I can change the name of that copy version anytime I want, and then it helps me know that I'm on the right one. Now, a place where we see this very commonly is with dates, right? Because maybe we're dealing with the kind of data that is separate in each tab. We want to accumulate sales and so on. Well, look at the awesome effect of being able to have those multiple sheets with multiple dates, so we can control the information. And if you were to do a deeper dive, you could make October, November, December's data show up here in the original schedule. There's so many fun things I want to show you. I'm just trying to be mindful of the time. I guess the other one I just really want you to see is conditional formatting, because it really helps with reporting functions. So let's say that typically we don't have a game on, let's say, Sunday. So maybe it would be unusual that something would be on a Sunday, and so I kind of want to point that out to the reader to draw their eye there, to say, oh, hey, by the way, there's an anomaly here, or we met a sales quota here. I want to point this out to you. Well, let me select a cell or a whole column, and in my column, let me go ahead and work with conditional formatting. So under my Format tab, I can scroll down there to conditional formatting, and it brings up this menu on the right side that lets me apply some rules. The rules are just, hey, if something happens here, we'll make it look different than everybody else. That's all that conditional formatting means. So here, I want to give an if rule here. So let's say that if anywhere in column C, the text contains this word of Sunday. Well, then I can choose what happens to it. If the text contains the word Sunday, then make that word bold, make it italicized, make it, what color are we in the mood for today? How about green? And oh gosh, this is so important, this particular thing. Let's make sure we also highlight the cell. So I can click on done. Well, now look what happened. It, in fact, applied those rules that anywhere in column C that word Sunday showed up, it changed it to be an outstanding thing. So with dates and sales quotas, if someone's working on commission and so on, these are the functions you want to do, that if it's over $10,000, we flag it. Or if we go into a deficit situation, we flag it so that our report reads a certain way. So let's see if I can find you on our webinar again. There we go. Now, what I would love to know is if by just seeing some of those functions, if anybody feels brave, that maybe you could try that just by seeing that you can drag things around and give them a try. I love it if you end up being a little bit brave on that part. Let's take a quick, oh, you people, you're making me cry. I love it. We'll take a quick peek at Google Slides. Anybody ever heard of PowerPoint out there? PowerPoint's sort of like Kleenex, right? It's we all know that it's a slideshow, but we tend to call it by the brand name. Well, Google called it slides, which I find completely hilarious because nobody uses actual slides anymore, and yet we still use that terminology. And look at their icon. It even looks like an old school slide that no one even knows what that is. If I showed my teenagers that, they'd have no idea. So I find that funny. I hope you can be geeky and nerd it out and laugh with me about that icon. Same concept though. We're going into the drive and then we're choosing to just use that program, Google Slides. It looks so much like PowerPoint and it's about 10 times easier to use. So actually in your homework takeaway today, this is what the homework is that you're going to go into Google Slides and you're going to create a small presentation. I'm not worried about animation and making words flip upside down. You can do that if you want, but you don't need to add all of those things. What I am asking you to do is just try it and play around in slides. And some of the slides that you'll include are actually screenshots of what you did in Google Docs and in Excel. So same concept, as soon as you open a new thing, it needs you to name it or you'll end up with untitled presentation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every time you create something. So give it a name and then give it a home. Now, the last thing we want to look at today is the whole reason some companies love Google, aside from the fact that it's also, you know, super cheap and super accessible and made computers cheap to buy. This is why, because there's not this emailing back and forth of documents anymore. You can just share them and unshare them at will. So remember we talked about what's the whole point of a cloud? Like, why are we even doing this? Why are we making this switch? Well, the whole point is let's make life easier for everybody else. So how many ever looked like this before when they had to do a file share? Do you know the pain? Because I know the pain. Now, I don't have the emoji button at the top of my screen, but I would be like seriously emojiing it up because this is how we've all felt when we've had to email a giant file or we're waiting for one, or you're limited to the company network and what it will let you upload, and then of course using flash drives. But don't we feel like this when that part just gets easier? We can have a shared drive, folder, or individual file. So you could share, let's use that example we had about staff schedules. You could share the entire file that has all of the schedules in it. Or you could just share the one that's October 2020. You really have freedom to share an entire drive, an entire file, or just one singular document. So just that concept of a shared document, because we probably want to start there. We don't want to give everyone full access to our drive just yet. Let's pretend we're inside Google Docs and just see how we would do that. So we can see we're in Docs because we have that blue icon with the words on it. And of course, we have a thing indicating that we're in a document. And then over on the right, we have the share button. Woohoo! As soon as we click on it, this is what we see. Who do you want to share it with? No problem. So you can share it with anybody. They don't have to have a Gmail address. They don't have to be within your organization. In fact, it'll warn you if they're not in your organization, and it'll say, are you sure you wanted to send it to this person? But go ahead and hit share to as many people as you want. And then when you're in that, you can just add a note. Now here's what I love about this. Right there, you can put a note and say, hey guys, I just updated November's schedule, here it is. And then you click send. You do not have to email anybody and let them know that it's there, because by sharing right from within your file, it does the email for you. So can we get a witness that it saves a step, right? Do we love that? You can do it right from within the document. As soon as you hit send, all of those people are going to have the notification in their inbox. But before you hit send, just decide, what level of sharing do I want to do? Do I want these people to be editors? Do I want them to just be able to leave a comment, or do I want them just to be able to view it? So that's key that you choose which one, especially if maybe you have your document's a baby with a bunch of tables and tabs and cross-references and so on. Maybe you want people just to view it, or maybe you just want them to add comments, because when they add a comment, it's like it goes into a little thought bubble, but it doesn't change the format of the actual document. So decide what level of collaboration, and there is an advanced setting for that. So if maybe you created the November staff schedule and then discovered, oops, my supervisor needs that because I'm going on holidays and they may want to change it or delete it, you can just go into that advanced setting and make someone the new owner, or change the setting that you had originally given them. So another way to do that, we do have that blue share button in the corner, but if you're a true Microsoft groupie, you always look for tabs. So you can also do it under that File tab, where you can choose File and then Share from there. Share with people in groups is exactly how it comes up. It looks just like the other Share button. So in doing that, we want to note, I showed you what it looked like to be inside Google Docs already and wanting to share that actual document. But boom, did you know you could just do that from your Drive? You don't even have to open the file. You can just be in Google Drive, which we love being in because it keeps us all organized. And then you can click on any file or any individual file. And when you click on it, boom, you get that share button. How fun is that? You also have the opportunity to look at things that are just shared with you. So it pulls those out in a way that you can see, and it's sort of easy to find all those shared work documents if you use that. Now, the other thing about sharing is we kind of miss this, don't we? How much have we been relegated to emails and techie talk, and we kind of miss this. So sometimes we're in a situation at work, like maybe there's two people who work at a front desk in front of the clients, and they're the filter, so that the clients have to go through that filter before they can get to someone in the back room. Well, this is sort of awkward, right? To have the whisper in front of the client. So a lot of people were referring to Facebook Messenger to have that chat, like, did this client pay their bill? Are they allowed to go in? And they're doing that privately. And then workplaces caught on and banned Facebook because it was slowing everything down. Well, Google came up with their own little solution for that. They used to have a separate app called Google Meet, but they've recently integrated that right inside of Gmail. So boom, you can be sitting in your Gmail and you can open up a new chat with one of your colleagues or whomever and go right ahead and have a private chat that nobody else can see is happening. Now, the thing about Meet is you notice it's right on the left below all of your file folders, and you just have a simple start a meeting button, and it takes you right here where you can see I'm in Google Meet as a new window, I'm signed in with my user ID, and I am about to have a Zoom meeting, as it were. So before I take you to your homework, I just want to show you one other cool thing, because I don't know if we cover this in any other way. So let's take you into Gmail. So in Gmail here, one of those whole privacy sharing things is about confidential mode. So if you were to compose an email, you can see that at the bottom, you have this little confidential mode by clicking on a padlock. And it tells you, I can make this confidential so that your recipients cannot forward, copy, print, or download this email. And how long do you want me to make it confidential for? I could make this whole thing expire in a day or in 5 years, whatever you wish. And I'll show you the difference when you see them. Look here at the top one. It says me. I used this account to send myself a confidential message. So the subject line was test, and here's what I wrote inside the email. This was sent from me to me. Deleting will remove the recipient also. So because I sent it to myself, I can see the actual shortcut text that's inside, right? I just want to get rid of that. What happens? Oh, warning, if you do this, whoever you sent it to also will no longer have it. Well, I feel great about that because maybe I regret sending it to that person. So I can click OK. Now look at how cool this one is. Because it's in confidential mode, this one, the message was sent in confidential mode. I can't read anything on the inside of it in my little preview here. I love that feature. So you have to go inside to see what it says. So if you know that you work with someone in a shared workplace, you probably want to use that if you know that you don't want those subject lines showing up in a way that people can read the inside content of the email. So, you know, tuck that in your hat, that whole confidential mode thing that helps with a little bit of the privacy and control so that people can't forward your things. So here's the thing. Out of these 3 parts, today's sort of the glue that's going to keep these concepts together for you. Because what you studied last session was foundational and helpful, and especially the homework that you did. But today, the work that you do from here is going to help you actually see how the look and feel is different than Microsoft and how you could use this to your advantage. So I do encourage you to go into that workbook, and maybe Carrie, you can put that workbook again so that it shows up at the bottom of our chat. And in that workbook, you'll be able, thank you, you'll be able to see that you're going to explore in docs, sheets, and slides, and then you're going to use a share setting to share with me as the instructor, and I'll get a chance to look at your work before our next session. So it's totally up to you. You could do something for fun. Maybe you're a gardener and you want to make a spreadsheet about your garden and your crop rotation. Maybe you're into hockey and you want to track stats, or maybe you want to do an inventory for office supplies. Use it for the workplace, use it for fun. It doesn't matter to me, but I find if you pick the project that interests you, you tend to learn it a little better before you pick the project that you've been avoiding all along. So in that workbook, please take a little bit of time, and I'm going to sign off just a few minutes early today so that if you've reserved this time in your workplace, you even have a few minutes just to jump on Google Docs right away and start that homework, as it were. Next time, we're going to look at converting PDFs because we can go in and out of them both ways. I love talking about keeping our drive organized. It makes me super happy, and I don't do it all the time. I just love that I can do it. And then the whole concept of being incognito and managing multiple accounts. The multiple accounts is probably the hardest thing that we have to do in managing our Google accounts. And so we want a coping mechanism for that. And I'm going to give you that coping mechanism next session. So thank you so much, everybody. Take some time and do that little bit of learning to grab this skill, because who knows, another workplace that I'm in, this is all they use is the Google Suite. So you don't know if this will open up doors for you another place. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. And as my colleague Carrie would say, go forth and be awesome.